The Buffalo Bills finally got Josh Allen, his true wide receiver one. And more importantly, Amari Cooper gets to escape Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. The Bills got Amari Cooper in a trade, also getting a 6th-round pick while sending away a 3rd and a 7th. Really not a ton to give up for a guy that can absolutely walk right in and be the number 1 receiver. The Bills really did need a number 1 wide receiver after the Bills traded away Stephon Diggs to the Texans in the offseason. Now, this is clearly a rental. The Bills might only be getting Cooper for the rest of the season. He got that big 5-year deal when he was with the Cowboys, and then of course he got traded to the Browns, who decided to take most of his base deal just to make him easier to trade. And clearly it worked. Cooper is having a bit of a down year for sure. The Browns have literally not scored 20 points all year, and simply put, Amari Cooper isn't getting the ball. And a lot of that comes down to Deshaun Watson just playing absolutely terrible. The Browns are a sinking ship that's going down really fast, and that's literally because of that Deshaun Watson contract. Not only did the Browns give up a ton to get Watson and decided to give up on Baker Mayfield, who is now the legitimate franchise quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but giving a guy a fully guaranteed $230 million deal after he was dealing with a ton of sexual assault allegations is absolutely insane, and the Browns are really just paying the price. He is straight up ass. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns with 4 interceptions, and the Browns literally cannot move the football at all. There's really no end in sight for him to actually get benched either, because there's no way out of his deal. Watson is going to turn into a $73 million cap hit for the next 2 years, and that's when it'll get really bad. There's just no way for the Browns to not be absolutely screwed for the next 2 seasons, whether it's to play on the field or just financially. There is a brutalizing rebuild coming soon, and that's why the Browns really do need to just get any good picks or value that they can. So trading away Amari Cooper does make sense. But now the Browns wide receiver core isn't exactly that good. The number 1 now is Jerry Jeudy, who was traded away from the Broncos for a reason and hasn't exactly stood out. Then it's Elijah Moore, another guy who was traded for a reason from the Jets, and now Cedric Tillman has moved up to the 3. It's not exactly an inspiring unit, but their quarterback is so bad that it really doesn't matter. It'll be bad no matter what. And really good for Amari Cooper for just getting out of that absolute disaster. And now he'll step into a good spot. Amari Cooper is going to walk in and immediately be the Bills' number 1 wide receiver. And it really helps out that the wide receiver core just isn't that great right now. But regardless, Josh Allen is so good either way. But it always does help in the NFL to have top tier weapons. Trading away a guy as good as Stephon Diggs definitely hurts. But that did feel a lot like an addition by subtraction situation. There was just a lot of drama there, and something had to give. And now the Bills have his replacement, at least for the rest of the season. Through 6 games on the Browns, Cooper is having one of the worst starts of his career. 24 receptions for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Surely it'll make quite the big difference going from Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen, and it shouldn't really take long for those numbers to ramp up. But even before getting Cooper, Josh Allen is already having a top tier season. He's rushed for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he's passed for 1,160 yards and 10 touchdowns. And the biggest thing by far, 0 turnovers. Yes, Josh Allen did not have a single turnover through 6 weeks. That is just an insane thing to say after watching Allen play over all these years, but it does sound like that lobotomy they gave him in the offseason is working wonders. And all that, by the way, without a really good number 1 wide receiver. So far this season, it's been Khalil Shakir. He's a good receiver, and he's played fine based on his expectations. He's had really similar numbers to Amari Cooper, 20 receptions, 249 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then there have been 2 other guys with over 200 receiving yards, Dalton Kincaid and rookie Keon Coleman. Then in the run game, it's really been the James Cook show. He has 309 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he's also had a big role in the pass game with 123 yards and a touchdown. With just how good Josh Allen's numbers have been, you'd expect this offense to be rolling a bit more, but it really hasn't been anything too crazy. So it makes sense taking a shot on a guy like Amari Cooper, who has been a very elite wide receiver in the past and was very good literally just last season. Amari Cooper is only 30 years old, which, yes, is a bit older for a wide receiver, but he's actually fresh off a career-high 1,250 yards last season. And by the way, that came with an absolute mess of starting quarterbacks. The Browns had 5 different starters in 2023. He had to play 6 games with Deshaun Watson, 5 with Joe Flacco, 3 with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 2 with PJ Walker, and then 1 game with with Jeff Driscoll. Yet, despite that absolute mess at starting quarterback, Amari Cooper put together a good season, and he caught 72 passes with 5 touchdowns. The year before for Cooper was pretty good too. That was his first year with the Browns, and it was the season Jacoby Brissett started a lot of it with the Deshaun Watson suspension. Watson did eventually take over, and Cooper ended up catching 78 passes for 1,160 yards and 9 touchdowns. That was a career high in touchdowns for him. When we look back at his time with the Browns, it really does feel like he kind of skated under the radar a bit. Like, he was good, and he had some really good numbers, but I don't think a lot of people realize that. He got traded to the Browns in 2022 for just a 5th round pick and a 6th round swap. So not exactly the biggest hail, but the reality is the Cowboys are trying to get rid of him really because of CeeDee Lamb turning into the true number 1. Amari Cooper was really good playing with Dak Prescott in Dallas. His last year was a bit underwhelming with only 865 yards and 8 touchdowns on 68 catches, but that was still really good considering that's when he really started splitting a lot of targets with CeeDee Lamb. But before that, he did have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. In 2020, he had 1,114 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a career-high 92 receptions. He was clearly a favorite target for Dak. Then the year before that, he had 1,189 yards and 8 touchdowns on 79 receptions. That was his first full season in Dallas. Amari Cooper is certainly no stranger to getting traded mid-season, or even getting traded after only 6 games. The same thing happened to him back in 2018 when he was still with the Raiders. The Raiders actually did get a pretty good return for him back then, unlike Dallas later did and then Cleveland now. The Raiders got back a 1st round pick that did end up turning into Jonathan Abram, who wasn't exactly that great, but still good value back nonetheless. In 2018, Cooper played 6 games in Oakland and then 9 games in Dallas, and the difference in stat lines is insane, and something that I could really see being the case again this season. He had 280 yards and a single touchdown with the Raiders, and then had 725 yards and 6 touchdowns with the Cowboys. That is just an absurd difference. It was literally more than he had in his final full season with the Raiders. In 2017, he only had 680 yards, but did have 7 touchdowns. I do think that Cooper will long be remembered as a good Raider because he was just so good in his first 2 seasons in the pros. As a rookie, he had over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, and immediately followed it up with 1,153 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2016. He was literally a Pro Bowler as a rookie and has since gone on to be a Pro Bowler 4 more times. He's actually been a Pro Bowler at least once with each of the teams he's played on now. And maybe now it's time for team number 4, the Bills. When you look at Amari Cooper's body of work, it's hard to not be excited for the Bills. There is nothing better than getting to watch a great wide receiver play with a great quarterback, and that's what we have here. Stephon Diggs was such a big difference maker for Josh Allen, and now it's time for Cooper to set into that role. It's going to be super fun to watch, and it should be really good for Cooper. At the end of the day, you can't overestimate how big of a change it is going from Deshaun Watson, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, to Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think Amari Cooper just flips a switch fast now, and he really could just be the big missing piece that the Bills really needed.